Good evening and welcome to our program Culture and Christianity. I'm Masikere, and tonight we are discussing about handling crisis. And our guest speaker, we have Mr. John Ng'ang'a. Thank you so much, Mr. Ng'ang'a, for taking your time and coming to our studios. Talking of crisis, Mr. John Ng'ang'a, maybe you can define by telling us what are crises.
Now, you know, a crisis is a happening, number one, that you did not expect. So many people go through the same things. For some, it's a crisis. For others, it's just a happening. One of the crises we normally talk about is midlife crisis. You haven't reached that level. Midlife crisis is when people are in their 40s or early 50s. You married in your 20s. You have been married for 15 to 20 years. All of a sudden, you find no interest in your husband, or you find no interest in your wife. Normally in Africa, that's when there were people to get a second wife. Now Christians don't get second wives. It becomes a crisis. Why is it a crisis? You married your husband, although that's not our subject today. Yeah. We need to tackle it during the marriage seminar, the marriage program. You married your husband expecting him to become a certain thing. Even when he did not become that in the first 5 years, you forgave him. After 10 years, sorry, this guy will never become what I wanted. So it frustrates you. You end up as a crisis. The reason why midlife, it can be a midlife season or a midlife crisis. The choice is, were you prepared properly before the wedding? That's why premarital counseling should involve the long-term marriage, not just the immediate 5, 6, 7 years. So the first element of a crisis is it is unexpected. Okay. So it causes you, and when something is unexpected, you have no arsenal of how to deal with it. You are in a problem, and at the same time you are thinking how to come out of the problem. If you had thought about it, you expected it, you have thought, how do I deal with this? So when the crisis comes, instead of getting confused, you start applying the strategies you had thought about earlier. And that's how people are able to go through life. Others are already depressed, stressed. Others, through the same thing, they don't have a crisis. It can also be a sickness. You have assumed because you're a Christian, you will never get sick. So for you, it's not something related. Then you get sick and you have been telling people, how come you're getting sick? You are not a serious Christian. Then you become a Christian, you get sick yourself. You end up in a crisis. You don't even know what to do because you have been talking against doctors and medicine. Now you are the one sick. It becomes a crisis. Whereas if you knew that sickness is normal for human beings, then you would have expected you would also be having a medical cover and you go through it. And even in terms of pain, you knew it could happen to you. You are able to cry to God with a sane mind because you expect it. So the first thing is something unexpected. The next thing is something where you are not following strategies in order to deal with it. So your first action makes it more. It's like you see fire, it's an electric fire, and you get water to fight electric fire. As soon as you put the water over to draw the water onto the fire, the current comes onto you and you are knocked down. Now, not only is the house burning, the owner is also dying. So the way you have managed the crisis has made it even worse. You end up in a greater crisis. So that loss of control, in addition to the fact that it was unexpected, is what makes it look as a crisis, something out of control.
Okay, and how do crises cause people to go back to tradition?
Now you can see clearly. At that moment, when you are confused, you can run to anything. The first thing is people feel like God doesn't love me. Second one, somebody comes and tells you, this is serious. You must be cursed. Your parents had left a curse that you will never marry a Mubura. And I hear that your wife is a Mubura. Oh, what do? you can sacrifice, and that curse will be averted. So once you enter into a crisis, you are not in a good decision-making capacity. So if somebody suggests that a traditional cure is what will help you out of the crisis, you will have forgotten God, forgotten his requirements, forgotten his abilities. You are likely to end up doing things in traditional way. And there are many people. In fact, the other day, I was in a seminar, and somebody told me, you are telling us not to believe in traditional ways, but I know somebody who married, then they got a child, I don't know, for 15 years. And they were told, the reason you don't have is because you didn't carry the processes that are supposed to be carried in our culture, in our religion. The man told me in a seminar, Christian seminar, that when they did it, they really got a baby. Now, can you see, now, in that area, if anybody ever gets a crisis, they will go to it. And that's why we said earlier that one of the ways of knowing somebody is a Christian is because they love the Lord so much, they would rather die in a problem than do something that will make the glory go to another. When you go traditional, when you sort out your crisis in a traditional way, you may still go over the crisis, you may even get a solution, but glory will go to the spirit of the ancestors, not to God. So you can't call yourself a Christian and go that way. Just like in voting, you can't say you are voting for me, you can't say you are supporting me, then the day of the voting, you put the vote on my opponent. Crisis is one of the best ways of testing whether somebody is serious with God. The problem is not the shaking, you need to understand. The problem is at the bottom of that person, there was a problem. You know, if I took 2 bottles of water and I started shaking them, I'm shaking with the same amount of shaking. Then this one becomes dirty and this one becomes clean, and this is even my left hand. You can't say that the reason the water is dirty is because of the shaking. You know, this bottle on the right hand had only pure water, and the bottle was clean before the pure water was put. This one had the particles at the bottom. They put clean water, and because the particles were at the bottom, both bottles looked clean. A little shaking, this one becomes dirty. So crisis will help you to see that the true belief of this bishop is actually not biblical belief. He still has traditional belief system. And that's why when you get a crisis, it's far much easier for you to end up in your going back. In fact, it's like your right hand. If you are writing with your left hand, learning how to write with the left hand, if a crisis comes and you're in an exam, you don't write with the left, you write with the right. So a crisis forces you to do what must be done in the way it must be done. And if your belief system is not fully trusted in God, you end up going that way. And that's why we need to establish, pastors need to establish their believers in discipleship to become disciples of Jesus Christ, who died on the cross. And yet, it's not something he wanted to do. At the Garden of Gethsemane, he said, he was in a crisis also. But because he expected it, he told God, God, I'm not up to this cup. This is too much for a human being. Yet not my will, but yours. In other words, he would have wanted another way of sorting out the crisis, but then he corrected himself. He says, not my will, but yours. That's what helps you to know he was totally committed. But because many people don't have that level of commitment, then chances are they end up doing things the traditional way, which is the real belief system way. Their real belief is that one. You know, James says, faith without works is dead. It means if during a crisis you revert to that, you have no faith. You used to say you have faith, but now your action tells us there was no faith. The same thing, you find 2 lovers, lovebirds, They love the Lord. They trust in God. 10 years, they have no child. 15 years, they have no child. All of a sudden, the guy drops this woman and goes for a girl. And normally, they don't even go for another girl. They don't to try again. They slip out of wedlock. The girl gets pregnant. Then they come and say, now you are co-wives. Co-wives? We are Christians. Yeah, but you can't get a baby. You are a useless woman. You start valuing the wife on the basis of as if she was a childbearing machine. The real belief system, you did not marry a wife. Your belief was you wanted a childbearing machine. Then your wife turned out not to be that machine. So you must replace it. You return the first one to say to the manufacturer and get one that can bear children. That's the belief system. So a crisis is the only one that will help you. You can think the man loves you because there has been no crisis. Wait until there is a crisis. For example, you are doing well, you are in class, you are passing exams. If you fail your exams, you will see your boyfriend drop you like a hot potato. Because he was not, he pretended to say something, but his faith is, the only proper woman is a woman with a degree. So since you are failing, I don't want such a woman. The real truth is, the crisis has helped to expose who that man is, who that boy is. So you can see that's what I'm saying. A crisis leads us to our traditions. Because if those are the things we have had and the ones we are holding. But if you are in Christ, a crisis will help you to trust him even more.
Tonight, we are talking about handling crisis. This is Culture and Christianity. We'll be right back to hear more from Mr. Nganga. Stay tuned.